Have you seen the Olympics recently? Especially the opening ceremony? They mocked God numerous times. Here's a list of ways the 2024 Paris Olympics have insulted God and the consequences that have followed. 1. Idolatry and worship of athletes. The Olympics presented athletes as larger-than-life figures, idolized and revered. Consequence: God warns against idolatry, and societies that turn to idols face spiritual decay. Biblical evidence: You shall have no other gods before me. Exodus 20:3. 2. Promotion of worldly values. The opening ceremony emphasized material success, fame, and the pursuit of worldly pleasures. Consequence: societies that prioritize worldly values over spiritual ones suffer from moral and spiritual decline. Biblical evidence: Do not love the world or the things in the world. 1 John 2:15. 3. Disregard for the Sabbath. Events were scheduled on Sundays, ignoring the importance of the Sabbath. Consequence: ignoring the Sabbath leads to spiritual neglect and distance from God. Biblical evidence: Remember the Sabbath day to keep it holy. Exodus 20:8. 4. Sexual immorality. Reports of promiscuity and immoral behavior among participants were widespread. Consequence: such behavior leads to moral corruption and divine displeasure. Biblical evidence: Flee from sexual immorality. 1 Corinthians 6:18. 5. Commercialism and exploitation. The event was marked by excessive commercialism and exploitation, often at the expense of local communities and the poor. Consequence: economic injustices and exploitation provoke God's judgment. Biblical evidence: For the love of money is a root of all kinds of evil. 1 Timothy 6:10. 6. Neglect of the poor and needy. The displacement of the poor and marginalized for the construction of Olympic venues was a significant issue. Consequence: God shows displeasure with societies that neglect the vulnerable. Biblical evidence: Whoever oppresses the poor shows contempt for their Maker. Proverbs 14:31. 7. Pride and arrogance. The opening ceremony and events often displayed excessive pride and arrogance by nations and individuals. Consequence: pride precedes downfall and divine retribution. Biblical evidence: Pride goes before destruction, a haughty spirit before a fall. Proverbs 16:18. 8. Blasphemy and mockery of God. Instances of mocking religious symbols were evident. During the opening ceremony, elements of the Last Supper were parodied, turning a sacred Christian moment into a spectacle for entertainment. Additionally, a Brazilian surfer was told to remove an image of Jesus from his surfboard. Consequence: blasphemy and mockery of sacred symbols lead to divine punishment and spiritual consequences. Biblical evidence: Do not be deceived. God is not mocked, for whatever one sows, that will he also reap. Galatians 6:7. 9. Divine signs and omens. During a notable power outage, the church was the only building with light interpreted as a divine sign. Consequence: this is seen as God's message of his presence and power, highlighting the need for repentance. Biblical evidence: The light shines in the darkness, and the darkness has not overcome it. John 1:5. These actions and their consequences align with biblical warnings, showing how the 2024 Paris Olympics can be seen as mocking God and facing the resulting divine displeasure.